and welcome back to my channel that is dedicated to the cause of community medicine, making it more understandable and clear at the conceptual level. So this is Professor Dr. Aditi Aikar taking you through another video to make you understand the healthcare delivery system in our country. Well, healthcare delivery system for that matter has, in spite of every effort, has never been equitably distributed throughout the society. In fact, people with access to the facilities are generally found to make greater use of them than people who have neither the knowledge nor the access to the facilities, even though they may be the people who are needing it more. So it's quite a paradoxical situation though. So let's try to understand the healthcare delivery system. But before we do that, it is important for us to understand what a system is. It is a set of things working together as parts of a mechanism or an interconnecting network as a complex whole. Usually, the delivery system, or any system for that matter, is taken to be three basic components: the input or structure, the process it goes through, and the eventual outcome of the whole process. So if we try to understand in context of the healthcare delivery system, the healthcare delivery system consists of all the organizations, the people and the actions whose primary intent is to promote, restore or maintain health. This includes efforts to influence determinants of health as well, more direct health improving activities as per the World Health Organization. Let's try to comprehend this health system in context of a model, that of a chronic care model. This chronic care model, or CCM, is designed to help practices improve the patient health outcomes by changing the routine delivery of ambulatory care through interrelated system changes. Why? To make the patient-centered, evidence-based care easy to accomplish. And its aim is to transform the daily care for patients with chronic illnesses from acute and reactive to a more proactive and planned interaction on part of the health system. And on the community side, it is desired that this comes through a combination of effective team care along with self-management support and effective use of community resources, along with integrated decision support and patient registers and other supportive information technology. So as you can see, a patient treatment and its health outcomes are not just a point delivery. It involves several components at several levels from several sectors to work together and strengthen the provider-patient relationship and eventual health outcomes. So let's look at the first component, that's input or structure. So what do we mean when we say the input or structure? It is basically concerned about the different segments necessary to ensure that the process can now take place. Supposing we want to run a medical college and hospital, we just cannot do that by signing the deed on the paper. For that, we need some structure in the place, some equipments in the place, some defined setups, and even if we have those, bricks and buildings, the equipments and beds, yet we cannot start unless we have the required manpower. So we need to have the requisite manpower in the forms of doctors, the nurses, the paramedics, the ground staffs, the support staffs. And to get all this going, there has to be a money factor involved. And again, to ensure all this work together in tandem, we need a good governance. And just a good governance intending to make this functional, having the adequate money wouldn't be possible if there isn't enough political willpower. So what are the basic things that goes into the healthcare delivery structure? It is the manpower that is required, the material in the forms of the infrastructure, the equipments, the money to fund all this, the governance to intellect and make them functional, and obviously the political willpower to get them moving. The process involves the healthcare providers from all tiers. But supposing the hospital is manned by all healthcare providers in the form of the doctors, the nurses, the paramedics and all, but there is no patient coming to access the healthcare, then the process fails. So just as important as the healthcare providers, the equally important are those who are accessing the healthcare. And in this process also involves the services that are offered and event. Outcome, which is the resultant of the input, there is a structure and the process involved in it. Now, this has been defined as the changes in the health of an individual, group of people or population that occur due to the healthcare interventions as per the World Health Organization. Now, there are several indicators to measure the outcome. It may be measured in terms of the mortality, the readmission rates, the patient satisfaction in terms of the quality of care and the cost targets, that whether it is affordable from point of view of the users. Now, in this context, it is good to know that when we are assessing a healthcare delivery system, it is important that it satisfies certain criteria. What are these? It needs to be available. That unless there is a healthcare facility near you, you cannot go and have a checkup. Secondly, it needs to be accessible. If that healthcare facility is way too far from your place, it will be very difficult to access and may not be feasible for you. Now coming to affordable. If the charges involved for getting that healthcare done is way too much, again you won't be able to afford the service, and that is called affordability. And lastly is the acceptability, that it should be socially, culturally acceptable to the people who are coming to avail the services. Now let's try to understand these basic things in terms of an example. Supposing a pregnant lady coming from a remote village has some pain abdomen and wants to get a checkup done by the gynecologist. Now there is a healthcare need. What she needs? Firstly, she needs the healthcare facility to be available. Supposing, let us presume, the community health center incidentally is around 5 kilometers from her residence. So if it is within a feasible distance, it becomes a available health service as well as accessible. Available because it's there, accessible because it is within a physical distance which is possible for her to go. Now when she goes there, the outdoor ticket costs around 10 rupees. So this is again affordable to her. So this facility, the service that is being offered from here is available, is accessible, is affordable. Now the woman in question wants a gynecological checkup. Supposing the male gynecologist is available on that day. That means the service is also available. Not only the infrastructure is there, the concerned service is also available. Yet the woman does not get her checkup done. Why? Because she comes from a community where she is not comfortable being checked up by a male doctor. And hence, in spite of the fact that it is a healthcare facility which is within a feasible healthcare, accessible distance. The outdoor tickets are affordable. The gynecologist is present, yet she doesn't avail the services. This is called the cultural non-acceptability. So, any service which may be available, accessible and affordable may not be culturally or socially acceptable. Now, coming a very important concept when we discuss the healthcare delivery system, because this healthcare delivery system intends to fulfill this mission, that is health for all by 2000. Well, why in 2022 we are talking about health for all by 2000? Because this is one of the pioneer initiatives taken way back in 1977 at the World Health Assembly, where it was decided that the main social target of background governments and of World Health Organization should be the attainment by all the people of the world of a level of health that will permit them to lead a socially and economically productive life, and this was popularly known as the health for all by the year 2000. Before that, this concept that health is a human right, it should be available, accessible and affordable and acceptable to all strata of the population, irrespective of their socio-economic conditions. So not just the domain of the privileged. So it is the historic Alma Ata Declaration of 1978 where first time this was made a directive to be followed by all the signing countries. And here is the particular point where the concept through which it was decided that health for all will be met is the primary health care. Because it was decided that if health has to be accessible to all, available to all, it has to start from the grassroots level, right from the villages, so that they find a healthcare delivery point nearby. And this was based on 4 basic principles. In fact, you often find this as a form of your question in the examination, that what is primary healthcare, what are the basic 4 principles, what are the functions, and many more. So the 4 principles involved are, firstly, equitable distribution. Why? Because everyone should get in an equal proportion. Then it is the appropriate technology, that proper technology to be used depending upon the situation. And of course, intersectoral development, because health is one such department which cannot function as a standalone department. It has to take cooperation from all different sectors, be it the women and child development, be it the environment, be it the different other public works departments. Because to run health, we need several things to be in place. You need a building for the civil support. You need those electrical equipments going. For that, you need the help from the Department of Electricity. You need the help from the water, the public works. You need help from the local administration. And the list goes on. And all this is impossible without proper community participation, because this healthcare is meant for the community and to be used by the community, and the community needs to participate as having a feeling of ownership. Now let's try to understand the definition of primary healthcare. So to make you understand, I've broken up the definition into certain basic points. Firstly, primary healthcare is an essential healthcare. And what it is based on? It is based on something practical, scientifically sound, and socially acceptable methods and technology. Why so? Because if I today say, throw some mustard seeds and all the health of people will be fine, because socially people accept this concept. But no, this won't work. For this we really need some scientifically sound, which is again socially acceptable with the right kind of technology. So primary healthcare is essential healthcare. It is based on practical, scientifically sound, and socially acceptable methods and technology, which is made universally accessible to individuals and families in the community through their full participation and at a cost that the community and country can afford to maintain. At every stage of their development in the spirit of self-reliance and self-determination. So, first point is essential healthcare. Second point is what it is based on. The scientifically sound and socially acceptable methods and technology. These healthcare should be universally accessible to all. And how should it be accessible? The community should be participating into it. So through their full participation. And if it is expensive, they cannot able. So obviously the next point is at a cost that the community and country can afford to maintain. And is it okay if it is delivered at only one point of stage of life? No. So we need it at every stage of the development in the spirit of self-reliance and self-determination. So basically the spectrum of primary health care involves the 4 basic components of prevention, promotion, curative care, and rehabilitation. The Alma Ata Declaration put forward 8 essential components of the primary health care, and this is often referred to as the octagons of primary health care. What are they? Firstly, let's simplify the situation. Let's make it easier for us to comprehend. To understand or to make a healthcare work, first and foremost thing is what our mind doesn't know, our eyes cannot see. So the first and foremost is the awareness. So this awareness, how can we get it? Through education. So first and foremost point is the education about the prevailing health problems and how to prevent and control them. So next important thing, we cannot study in empty stomach. Can we? We cannot. So we need food. The next point is the food supply and proper nutrition. And along with food, what we always take? We always take some water. So the third point is adequate supply of safe water. Can we take that food and water in a dirty place? No. For that, to ensure that food and water is properly taken, we need a basic sanitation in that place. So, educated mind looking for food along with safe water in a place with basic sanitation. Now, to prioritize a health service where there is resource constraint, the first group that needs to be prioritized is the mother and child group. So the fourth point is about the prioritized healthcare in this primary healthcare. There is maternal and child health, and if these segment of the population has to be kept under a certain check and ensure their number is not humongous, one has to adopt family welfare measures. So the fourth point involves maternal and child health along with family planning. And when a child is concerned, of course, the immunization cannot be far behind to protect them from the infectious diseases. And the next disease concern is the prevention and control of endemic diseases. And of course, treatment of common infections. When you are treating a common infection, you need some drugs. The essential drugs becomes the last component of the octagon of primary healthcare. So let's recap. It's the education which we need to understand the scenario of the health problems and prevent and control them. Again, we need food supply for proper nutrition along with safe water and basic sanitation. Prioritize group being the maternal and child health, because if every kind of healthcare comes to the primary healthcare level, which is the basic level, it will be overwhelming for the system to take care of it. So the prioritized group is the maternal and child health, and to keep a check, it is about the family planning measures. And in the treatment component, there are three components. One is the preventive component, that is immunization. Then is the second, prevention and control component of endemic diseases, and third is the secondary prevention, that is the treatment component of common infection. And to treat any infection or any disease for that matter, you need essential drugs. That makes it easier for you to understand. Now let's come at the different levels of healthcare system in our country. Basically, the healthcare system in India is three-tiered. Remember the word, it's a three-tiered system. Primary, secondary level and the tertiary level. The primary level, we have the sub-centers and primary health centers as the delivery points. At the secondary level, we have the community health center. And at the tertiary level belongs the hospitals and medical colleges. Now that we had a fair understanding of the healthcare system and healthcare system in our country, let's have a look at the rural healthcare system in India, because not only it is an important fact to learn, it is also important from your examination point of view. We often have in this form of a long question. The rural healthcare system starts from the grassroots level with the sub-center as the most peripheral contact point between the primary healthcare system and the community manned with one health worker female, one health worker male, along with a voluntary worker. Next is the primary health center, which is a referral unit for 6 sub-centers usually. And then is the community health center, which is a 30-bedded hospital which acts as a referral unit for 4 PHCs with specialized services meted out through this. And these 3-tiered healthcare delivery points are getting feedbacks from the community, from the different community health workers, which we will discuss further. So the healthcare infrastructure in rural areas is based on certain population norms. So let us have a look at that. The sub-centers usually in the plain area caters to 5,000 population. In hilly, tribal and difficult to access area caters to 3,000 population. In the primary health center, plain area, it caters to 30,000 population and 20,000 in the other one. Community health centers in the plain area caters to 1,20,000, and in the hilly, tribal and difficult area it is 80,000. So since we have one health worker female at the sub-center levels, it usually they cover to 5,000 population in the plain areas and 3,000 population in the hilly, tribal and difficult to access areas. So as we have already discussed, but let's just recap, the number of sub-centers under the jurisdiction of one PHC is 6, and the number of PHCs under one CHC is 4, and one health assistant male at the PHC takes care of 6 health worker male coming from 6 different sub-centers. Similarly, one health assistant female at the PHCs supervises the health worker females coming from 6 sub-centers. Now let's look at the sub-centers. It is the most peripheral and the first contact point between the patient and the healthcare facility. It has three employees: the health worker male, the health worker female, and a voluntary worker, who usually gets an honorarium of around 50 to 100 rupees. The Government of India's Ministry of Health and Family Welfare is responsible in providing the 100% funding at the sub-central level. Now coming to the primary health center. This is the first point where we can find a medical officer. So it is the first contact point between the village community and the medical officer. The PSCs are established and maintained by the state government under the minimum needs program and the basic minimum services program. It is manned by a medical officer supported by 14 paramedical and other staffs. It acts as a referral unit for 6 sub-centers, and it usually has 4 to 6 inpatient beds. And the activities of the primary health center involves all the components of the spectrum of healthcare. There's curative, preventive, promotive, and family welfare services. Let's have a look at the staffing pattern of the primary health center. We have one medical officer, one pharmacist, nurse midwife, health worker female, or often called as the auxiliary nurse midwife, health educator, health assistant male, health assistant female, and this is often called the lady health visitor, upper division clerk, a lower division clerk, laboratory technician, driver, if there is a vehicle available at that point. Class 4 staffs, so excluding the contractual staff, usually around 15. So what are the functions made through the primary health centers? Of course, it is the medical care, ensuring the implementation of the facilities available under the different national health programs, the maternal and child health care and family planning services, health education and training for the capacity building of the workers, and referral services when the primary health center realizes that it cannot serve that particular function. Ensure there is safe water supply and basic sanitation, prevention and control of locally endemic diseases, collection and reporting of vital events, and the basic laboratory services. To the community health center. Well, it is also differently named in some states as the block primary health center. The community health center should have a 30 indoor beds with 1 operation theatre, labor room, X-ray, ECG and laboratory facility. And the objective is, of course, to ensure there is expert care available to the community at a acceptable standard quality care, and all the universal best practices are adopted. Usually the services offered involves the outdoor services and the indoor services involving the disciplines of general medicine, surgery, obstetrics and gynecology, pediatrics, dental and Ayush services. And for every 5 community health centers, there is 1 eye specialist service available. Besides this, the community health center also caters to emergency services, laboratory services, and implements the services available under the national health programs. The staffing pattern of the community health center. Here is the point where you have more number of medical officers because of the specialist service as well, and nurse midwives along with the dresser, a pharmacist, laboratory technician, radiographer, 2 ward boys, a dhobi, 3 sweepers, a mali, a chowkidar, aya and a peon. Now coming to the healthcare workers at the grassroots level, who ensures the proper bridge is created between the community and these healthcare delivery points which we discussed about the rural healthcare. Earlier in 77, the major health worker at this level was the village health guide, but nowadays it has been replaced by the ASHA, that is the accredited social health activists. The training A local dyes has also been done, but these days this form of delivery is not preferred, with the ASHAs emerging as the most important link between the community and the health services at the different tiers. And this all started with the advent of National Rural Health Program Mission. And for every 1,000 population, we have a ASHA. The Anganwadi workers are also at the grassroots level under the ICDS, and they cater to every 400 to 800 population, and they have a special group they cater to, unlike the ASHAs who looks after almost every component. The ASHAs are usually selected from the local community. The reason being, belonging to that community gives them the advantage of having a fair knowledge about the advantages and disadvantages, the health problems, the social norms, and makes them more acceptable to the rest of the community. They can be married, widowed, or divorced, but preferably in the age group of 25 to 45 years. She should be a literate woman with due preference in selection to those who are qualified up to 10th standards. And it is desired these selected women have good communication skill along with leadership ability. Why so? The reason being, when a lady is going up to the different houses in the community and trying to convince them about the healthcare needs, spreading the health awareness, and ensuring that they act accordingly, they need to have a good amount of communication skill as well as a leadership ability to ensure that those people listen to her commands. Besides, an adequate representation of the disadvantaged population is desired so that those population can be accessed in an easier fashion. The capacity building of ASHA is being seen as a continuous process. The ASHA will have to undergo a series of training episodes to acquire the necessary knowledge, the skills, and the confidence for performing her spelled out roles. No doubt, with so much of work and functions expected of her, a continuous capacity building is the call of the day. The ASHAs will receive performance-based incentive for promoting universal immunization, referral and escort services for reproductive and child health, and other healthcare programs, and construction of the household toilets. Better. Now, if you look at the role of ASHA, it is actually a profound one. Honestly speaking, I believe we put too much ASHA on the ASHAs. And ASHA is expected to generate awareness and information to community about the different determinants of health, counsel the women mobilization and facilitation of community to access healthcare, work with the village health sanitation and nutrition committee, accompany the women and children in need of health care, treat minor ailments and provide the dose if needed, being the depot holder of essential drugs, oral rehydration salt, IFA, the disposable delivery kits or DDK, the antimalarial drugs, condoms for family welfare, and oral pills as well, able to treat childhood illnesses, inform about the vital events, and promote household toilets under the total sanitation campaign. So you can see it is almost all-encompassing function. Challenges involved in this rural healthcare delivery system are many. One of the most important one is the awareness, in fact the lack of it. How aware is the Indian population about the important issues regarding their own health? Well, it's a difficult question to answer. Next is the absence of adequate manpower and infrastructural support in the healthcare delivery points matching the rising population, the rapid urbanization, and the changing demographic profiles. Next is the access, in fact, the lack of it. What is the level of access of a population to the healthcare of good quality? It is the question that may have varied answers. The availability, supply, and utilization of healthcare services as being factors in determining the access often face barriers in the forms of financial, organizational, social, and cultural domains, which limits the utilization of the services even in places where they are available. Now coming to the affordability or the cost of the healthcare. The private sector is the dominant player in the healthcare arena in India, with almost 75% of the healthcare expenditure coming from out-of-pocket expenses, and as a result, leading to impoverishment. The accountability is equally important in this delivery, ensuring quality care, quality research in the public health field, along with ensuring there is patient satisfaction. To deliver this whole system in India, we have three basic links. At the central level, the state level, and the other one at the local or peripheral level. The organs at the central level involve the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, the Directorate General of Health Services or DGHS, and the Central Council of Health and Family Welfare. When we looked at the Union Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, it caters to three major departments: the Department of Medical and Public Health, the Department of Family Welfare, and the Department of ISMH. This ISMH stands for the Indian System of Medicine and Homeopathy. The functions of the Union Health Ministry regarding health and family welfare is basically distributed into three lists: the union list, that is started by them, the state list, which is the responsibility of the state, and the concurrent lists, which is the list that are both shared by the union and the state. The concurrent list involves the prevention of communicable diseases, prevention of food adulteration, control of drug and poison, vital statistics, labor welfare, economics and social planning, and population control and family planning. In the union list is the international health relations and quarantine, control of drug standards, administration of centrally run institutes, promotion of research through various centers and bodies, regulation and development of medical, dental, nursing and pharmacy as professions, and the coordination with the state level. Now coming to the state level, it is delivered through the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, headed by the State Health Minister, and the State Health Minister is aided by the Deputy Health Ministers, the Health Secretary and the Deputy Secretaries, and they have two wings of function majorly. There is the Directorate of Health Services and the Directorate of Medical Education, assisted by a flurry of administrative staff members. Now coming to the district level, here we find there are around 6 administrative areas: the subdivision, the tehsil, the community development block, the municipality and corporation, the village, and the panchayat. Basically, this is following the rural local self-government, which is responsible for the development programs to be channeled through them. So, at the district level, we have the Jila Parishad, the Panchayati Raj. And at the block level, we have the Panchayat Samiti. At the village level, we have the Gram Panchayat. And these Panchayat has 3 functionaries at the village level: the Gram Sabha, the Gram Panchayat, and the Naya Panchayat. Look at the NRHM flow chart of healthcare delivery in our country. This National Rural Health Mission was in fact launched in 2005 to ensure that healthcare delivery is equitable, affordable, as well as accountable and accessible. And this, as we mentioned, follows the 3-tier system ensuring decentralization and more peripheral empowerment. At the very village level, we have the ASHAs and the health workers reporting to the sub-centers, and they work in coordination with the village health and sanitation committee and are funded through the untied funds. And then they are reportable at the primary health centers and eventually to the community health centers, where they get fund from the Rogi Kalyan Samitis and are in coordination with the block health and sanitation committee. And eventually it goes to the district health society, and the district health mission works in coordination with the block health and sanitation committee along with the district health society and managed by the district project management units. This district health society is reportable to the state health society, which eventually manages the state health mission through the state project management unit, and all these are reportable to the National Rural Health Mission at the central level. So this is the basic flow chart of the healthcare delivery system as is envisioned under the National Rural Health Mission in India. Now let's look at some of the probable questions from this particular topic that we discussed today. Well, some of them are the components of the healthcare system, the levels of healthcare, primary healthcare, its definition, its function, the octagons of primary healthcare, the elements, the principles, the rural healthcare delivery system in India, the challenges involved in the rural healthcare delivery system, the links of the healthcare system in the India, the Panchayati Raj and how it is involved in the healthcare delivery in our country. And using all these basic knowledges, you may build your answer while attempting the applied questions of healthcare as a BMOH and many. Well, thank you so much for your watch and hope this helps you to clear your concepts, have greater clarity about the healthcare delivery system, and happy studying, along with the fact that if you are looking forward to many more such contents, then please do like, comment, share and subscribe to my channel and press the bell icon to ensure that all the new uploads are duly notified to you. Thank you once again. Happy studying.